Your home is a liability waiting to happen, and you just don't know it yet. Right now, as you're watching this, your front door could be kicked in with less force than it takes to open a pickle jar. Those fancy locks you installed last summer? They're connected to a door frame held together by screws barely longer than a pencil eraser. The strike plate, that thin piece of metal your deadbolt slides into, is attached with hardware so weak a determined teenager could breach it. This isn't fear-mongering, this is physics and statistics combined with the uncomfortable truth about residential construction standards in suburban America. But here's what they don't tell you at the hardware store. Security isn't about having the most expensive system or the latest smart technology. It's about layers, friction, and making yourself a harder target than everyone else on your block. When someone's casing houses, they're doing a cost-benefit analysis in their head. Time, noise, risk, reward. Every single obstacle you add tips that calculation away from your property. The beauty of this system is that you don't need to order anything online or wait for installation appointments. Everything you need is already somewhere in your house, garage, or toolbox. Let's start with the most critical vulnerability, your primary entrance. The front door isn't actually your weakest point. That would be your windows. But it's what people expect to be secure. And in defensive psychology, meeting expectations in one area while exceeding them in others creates confusion and delay. Pull out your drill and find the longest screws in your collection. I'm talking about 3-inch, 4-inch screws, the kind you bought for building that deck or shelving unit you never got around to finishing. These are about to become your first line of structural defense. Remove every short screw from your strike plate and door hinges. Those pathetic 1.5-inch screws are cosmetic at best. Replace them with your longest screws, driving them deep until they bite into the wall studs behind the decorative trim. What you've just accomplished is transforming your door frame from a decorative suggestion into an actual structural component of your home. When force is applied to this door now, it doesn't concentrate on weak points. Instead, it transfers into the skeleton of your house. The physics are simple but devastating to anyone trying to force entry. Now focus on the hinges with the same intensity. Most people reinforce the lock side and completely ignore the hinges, which is exactly what makes them a perfect attack vector. A competent intruder knows this. They don't waste energy kicking the lock side. They target the hinges, pop the pins if they can access them, or simply attack the hinge side of the frame. Once you've replaced every hinge screw with long screws anchored into the studs, that strategy becomes exponentially harder. They'd need power tools and 20 minutes of continuous noise, neither of which they want to provide you. Create a barricade system using angles and physics. Find that wooden closet rod you've been meaning to replace, or grab a broom handle, a mop, even that decorative oar you impulse bought because it looked beach-themed. Wedge it at a 45-degree angle from the door handle down to the floor. The angle is critical because it distributes force across the entire floor surface rather than concentrating it at a single point. No wooden objects available? Use a chair wedged under the handle. The principle remains the same. You're recreating a mechanical disadvantage that makes the door nearly impossible. To force inward without removing the obstacle first. Windows are architectural lies dressed up as features. They're not there for your security, they're pre-installed breach points wrapped in a thin layer of glass and optimism. Every ground floor window in your house is an invitation, unless you make it expensive to accept. This is where duct tape becomes your tactical best friend. Not the cheap stuff, get the real contractor-grade duct tape. Apply it in a crisscross grid pattern across every ground floor window. This isn't decoration, it's structural reinforcement that changes how glass fails under impact. When normal glass breaks, it shatters into hundreds of pieces that fall away cleanly. But taped glass behaves completely differently. It spiderwebs and clings to the tape, staying mostly in the frame like a jagged sticky puzzle made of knives. An intruder who breaks a taped window is immediately faced with a clinging, cutting, grabbing mess that shreds exposed skin and makes noise with every piece they try to remove. Each fragment pulled away sounds like someone crushing chips in a silent library. You'll hear them long before they get through, and they know it. Now create physical barriers behind those windows. Shove your heaviest furniture against them. Dressers, bookshelves, that exercise bike you've been using as an expensive coat rack. The goal is simple. Even if they manage to break and clear the glass, they're confronted with a 200-pound obstacle that has to be moved before entry is possible. Movement means noise, time, and sustained effort. These are the three things criminals hate most because each one increases their exposure to detection and capture. Make every inch of progress cost them something. Keep every curtain and blind closed, but not because you're hiding, you're controlling information. When they can't see inside, they can't assess what you have, where you are, how many people are home, or whether you're armed and aware. Uncertainty is a psychological weapon that works on the subconscious level. Human beings are pattern recognition machines, and when patterns are disrupted or hidden, anxiety increases. Let them wonder what's behind those curtains. Let that uncertainty do work for you while you sleep. Sliding glass doors deserve their own category of contempt. They're beautiful architectural jokes that most people assume are secure simply because they're heavy. The reality is most can be lifted right off their tracks with minimal effort. Cut a wooden dowel, a 2x4, or even a thick broomstick to fit perfectly in the bottom track. This prevents sliding, but don't stop there. Drill a hole at a downward angle through the sliding door frame into the fixed frame. Drop a thick nail or bolt through that hole. Now the door is mechanically pinned in place. Here's a petty but effective bonus move. Smear the outside handle of your sliding door with something unpleasant. Grease, petroleum jelly, that expired mayonnaise from the back of your fridge. Make it disgusting to touch. Is it petty? Absolutely. Does it work? Also absolutely. You're adding a psychological barrier to the physical ones. Every small friction point you create compounds with the others. This is how you build a defensive system that operates on multiple levels simultaneously. Physical security plus psychological deterrence equals a property criminals actively avoid. Your garage door is a betrayal waiting to happen. There's an emergency release handle inside that exists for legitimate safety reasons, but it's also a massive vulnerability. An intruder can push a bent wire coat hanger through the top gap, hook that release, and pull. 6 seconds later, they're inside your garage, which connects directly to your house. This is an unacceptable weakness. Secure that release handle with multiple heavy-duty zip ties. You can still yank it free in a real emergency, but a thin coat hanger won't have the leverage. Problem solved for 30 cents. Unplug your garage door opener completely. No power means no automatic opening from any source. If someone wants to open that door now, they have to manually lift a 150-pound door, which is loud, slow, and completely visible to anyone watching. Everything you want in a deterrent. If possible, park a vehicle inside the garage. Even if they somehow get the door open, there's a 2-ton obstacle in the way. They're not moving that quietly or quickly, and the attempt itself draws attention they cannot afford. Now we enter psychological warfare territory, and this is where security becomes truly interesting. Physical barriers stop bodies, but psychological barriers stop decisions before they're made. You want potential intruders to conclude your house is a bad idea before they even attempt entry. First technique, fake the presence of a large, aggressive dog. Put out a massive steel water bowl near your back door. The industrial size meant for Rottweilers or German Shepherds. Toss a chewed-up rope toy in the yard. Clip a heavy chain leash to your fence. Add a beware of dog sign with an image of something that looks like it considers intruders a dietary supplement. Why does this work so effectively? Because dogs represent chaos and unpredictability. They bark at irregular intervals, they bite, they're loyal to their territory. Even a 10% chance of encountering a dog is enough to make most criminals select a different target. You're not lying about having a dog, you're just strongly implying it. Let them make their own risk assessment based on the evidence you've presented. Create signs of occupation and presence. Leave a pair of large muddy work boots by the front door. Size 13, caked with dirt. This suggests a large working-class person who's home and probably owns tools that double as weapons. It doesn't matter if you're actually a 5-foot-tall accountant. They don't know that. Leave a radio playing, preferably talk radio. Voices suggest people. People suggest witnesses. Witnesses suggest risk. Risk suggests they should try the house next door instead. Set a few lights on random timers. Not all of them, just enough to suggest movement through the house. Someone awake, someone alert. Final perimeter defense. Make approach itself unpleasant. Spread bags of gravel under windows and along side paths. You cannot walk on gravel quietly. Every step announces presence like a natural alarm system. Plant or relocate thorny bush under windows. Roses, bougainvillea, anything with thorns becomes a biological barrier that shreds clothes and skin while leaving DNA evidence. Stretch a garden hose across dark paths as a trip hazard. Install fake motion sensor housings with visible lenses. They'll assume these work and avoid entire areas. The goal is simple. Stack enough small obstacles that the risk-reward calculation no longer makes sense. You're not trying to build a fortress that can withstand a siege. You're just trying to be slightly harder to victimize than the house next door. That's all it takes. That difference is everything.